Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to
Working in Europe versus working in the USA. What no one's talk, what no one talk about.
Hey there, fellow travelers, or should I say fellow worker abroaders? Mark here with Walter's World, and today what I want to talk about are some of the differences that Americans notice when they come to work in Europe. There's a lot of people, their dream is, I'm going to move to Europe, I'm going to work there, and everything's going to be great, and it can be. I've actually lived in Europe for like 12 years, 13 years, and worked in a lot of different places. I worked in Lithuania, I worked in Portugal, I worked in Austria, I've gone all over, worked with the locals, been part of the team, had to pay the taxes and all those things. And I kind of want to go through some of the differences that American workers really kind of notice.
Interesting. So I mean, okay, now he is successful YouTuber, right? Let me see his subscribers. Yeah, 1 million, oh plus million. Yeah, he's making money off YouTube. That's different. I didn't realize he started like he actually used to work in the countries, because that there is one thing moving to a country, making American money and moving to the country and living there. That's that's one thing, but actually working there, because the wages, generally speaking, for the most part, are less than America. So let's see what he got to say.
When they come to work in Europe. And sometimes you'll see the jokes that, oh, they get all the vacation time, haha. Yeah, that's true. But there's also some more serious things as well, okay? And I want to start with the one that people talk about the most. You have so much more time off when you work in Europe than when you work in the US. And I'm not just talking the vacation time they give you, I'm talking about just normal holidays they give you off, which is really nice because you can have a much better work-life balance when you're in Europe than in the US, okay? Because you just
I would say, yeah, the difference about like the holidays, like here the holidays, you don't get like federal employees, like state employees, they get every holiday off, but the people that work for businesses, they don't necessarily get every holiday off. In Europe, everybody gets every holiday off. That's the biggest difference.
have more time to be you. You have more time to be with your family. You have more time to exist on your own without just having work be everything. And that's one of those nice things to it. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that people notice is just that amount of free time you do have. Because another thing that Americans notice when they come to Europe is work stops when work stops. If work is 9 to 5, you work 9 to 5. You can be mid-sentence, it's 5 o'clock, we're out.
Nah, that's not true. Once again, I'm surprised he's saying that. Working in Europe, maybe he worked like a, like a waiter, waitress. I don't know. My mother, work stopped at like 9 p.m. Never work never stopped when she got back
yeah,
home.
he's been on the east too.
Yeah, when she comes back home, she's still like preparing either presentations for the next day or like finishing up.
It could be not to
Hmm.
say he's not a hard worker, but it could be just your mom's a hard worker and she wants to be the best.
Okay, fair enough, but to generalize that work stops when work
Yeah.
stops is just not true.
Mm.
And no one holds it against you. There's no like, oh, we need to stay in for the team. No, we're pulling an all-nighter tonight. We need you to work an extra 10 hours this weekend. No, that stuff doesn't happen here. Like, I mean, it can happen, but it doesn't really happen. It's much more, oh, work's over. We didn't get it done. We didn't get it done. Moving on until Monday. I got stuff to do this weekend. Bye. And that's it. There's the boundaries that are here. Like, work is not everything. You don't get defined by it, which is really kind of cool. So you're not staying late. You're not working the weekends. You're only there when the hours you're supposed to
Well,
work, which is
foods
really
are so
nice. And I
interesting.
will
I
say another
couldn't
thing you
tell what it
notice is
was. Like if it's like a pudding or a coffee or a
I don't
drink.
know.
work is a bit slower because you don't have that going overtime, doing all this stuff. Things do take more time, and that's where a lot of Americans sometimes get frustrated with their European colleagues because, like, oh, can we just knock this project out and move on? Oh, why are you taking so long? Why you have a lunch break? You have a coffee break? Can we just move through? And so they get that U.S. get that frustrated with the kind of the slow work kind of stuff, or at least I would say the not hurry up and rush kind of thing. It's like, hey, we're gonna get it done when we get it done. Don't worry about it. And that's the thing is people they're not worrying about it. It's not like work is everything. And I think that's a big thing to mention is you are not defined by your work in Europe. In the U.S., it's like I live to work, and here in Europe, it's more like I work to pay for the fantastic food. I mean, it's just part of life.
Oh no, that's so hard for me to take, especially when he said he worked in Lithuania. I just don't feel like that's the case in Lithuania at all. Like we literally have a saying, work decorates a man, like as a person, not like male. It's like that's not true at all.
But that's not my life. Like I honestly can say, like when I did my PhD and masters and stuff, when I did it in Europe, when I look back on it, I don't think of it like I did my PhD in Portugal. It was I lived in Lisbon. Like it was a life, and you had that separation, and you're not defined by it. And that's one of those things that's really nice is that you can be you. Like that's one of the things I really loved about working here. But one of the things that
I
you'll notice when
think maybe I would say you do have more free time in Europe after work, but it's not because you work less. I think because the cities are smaller. Like there's like usually like maybe you walk to work or like a a quick bus trip or whatever. Here like you can end up spending like an hour each way to go home because of traffic. That's basically 2 hours a day out of your life. I think that might add to your work, which is not work, but it is kind of work because it's not personal time. I think in Europe, that's probably cut down to 15, 20 minutes. Unless you like, I don't know, if you're driving from far away, it's possible. But I think oftentimes in Europe, it's more just distances are closer. So you save
That's
time.
true.
So
That
you
makes sense.
you basically have an hour and a half a day more. So it feels like you're working less when you're working the same amount, but the extracurricular activities post work that are related to work, you have less of those. I think for that reason, you could say it feels like you're working less in Europe. Because, yeah, like, you know, where I grew up in a small town, like 5 minutes to get to work, 5 minutes to go back. Here in 5 minutes, I get to a traffic light.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
Not even stuck down. Like wow.
Yeah, so it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, here, like, probably at least an hour a day for majority of the people is just wasted in commuting.
That's true.
At least an hour, some people 2 hours. I have heard cases where it's 2 hours each way, so 4 hours a day. I mean, extremes, but so I think that if we consider that into work, yeah.
You might not like when you do work in Europe is you're not really truly friends with your coworkers. Now, you can be friendly with your coworkers and you're probably more likely to go get drinks on a Friday after work with people, but making that close friendship bond, it's not as much there here in Europe because a lot of people, they live and work in the city they grew up in. So they have friends since they were little kids. They're still friends with their buddy from kindergarten, first grade when they're 50 years old, 60 years old, 30 years old, 20 years old, whatever. And therefore,
don't
you
work
as a foreigner.
together? So they work together?
No, they're just saying they're not looking to make new friends because they already have friends. Like they're buddies for 30 years. What they're not really looking. Whereas here in the States, everybody kind of leaves for college, so you get a fresh start. So your friends, it's either college or sometimes people after college they move to a new place. So and it's not just one person, many people. So they need to make friends as adults. So they kind of work it.
I feel like in what I see, like for in France, they do a lot of socializing. Like you could drink wine and have cigars and talk to like your colleagues.
In
I would think
France,
that
I
would
don't,
be.
I don't know. I can't.
I
See,
think
that's what
that
he's saying. I don't know.
because I don't know here that can happen, but there's always like questions with HR.
I think friendships are okay, but it's a relationship. Yes, HR. Friendships, I think we do have it here because there's like office parties and they kind of like encourage hanging
Yeah.
out after work, go and get
Yeah.
beers or whatever at the bar. Yeah,
I think it really varies. I don't know if it's like cut
I
dry like that.
I think the thing is, the reality is anywhere in the world, I think it's hard to make friends as an adult. I think the time to make friends is the school, the college. After that, it's just harder. So like the difference is maybe what he's saying in Europe, you don't really need to make friends because you have them already from back in the day when you came up together. And most people do end up living in the same cities, small towns. Here, a lot of people do move around. Like it's just you go off to college somewhere else. So all the friends from before that cut. After college, you move to another part of the country. College friends cut. You talk to them maybe occasionally, but not nobody to really hang out to. So I think that's the difference. You kind of need to make friends as an adult, and it's hard as an adult. Where you make friends, like realistically, work, gym. If you do have extracurricular activities like a club or something you join, but why you join a club? Probably to make friends. So it's like it's just not easy. You're not gonna make a friend in a grocery store doing your errand.
I was gonna say grocery store before you said no.
That's movies. That's movies. Oh, you run into the love of your life in a grocery store. You bump into them, spill water on them.
No,
That's movies.
Friends with the people who work at the grocery store.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's just being cordial.
Coming in, it's hard to get into a friendship circle because they already have their friends. And that's why sometimes expats end up leaving destinations that are super cool.
Says little brother.
Yeah,
You wanna be my little
that's
brother?
true.
Yeah.
He's right about that.
Because they're lonely. You live in a city with millions of people and you don't have friends. And it is really tough. That's why I'm saying sometimes it's easier if you're going to be an expat in a place to be an expat in a Paris, a London, a Milan, a Berlin, where a lot of people have come and moved to, but not just international expats coming there, but also people from all over Italy move to Milan. People from all over Germany move to Berlin. So they're looking for friends as well. So it's a little bit easier to make friends. But that is one of those things is you might have it that you're not really super friends with your colleagues. And some of them you'll still call Hail Voltos after you've been working with them for 30 years. You're still Hail Voltos and not even on a first name sometimes. So do be aware of that. Now, it's not always the case. You can make friends, but I think it is one of those things that's important to mention because finding that good friend base when you first move abroad is really important so you have that social connection. Now, another thing that I will definitely tell you is true is if you come and work in Europe, you do not make anywhere near the same amount of money as you do in the US. Like, that's why a lot of Europeans like going to the US because they make a lot of money. They can get more stuff. And so you do have that. And so when you think about it, maybe that's something when you think about your retirement, you're thinking about, hey, what am I going to do in the future? You have to think about those things. That's why when I have students like, oh, Mark, I want to go work in Europe. Like, all right, well, do you have college loans? Because you still have to pay them off. And you might make as much money to pay it off as fast as you do in the US. But then they're like, yeah, but in Europe, we don't pay for our education. So it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, that's why there's a little bit of difference. But the pay gap is a real thing. Like between the US and the EU, I mean, I won't lie to you. Like some places you do get paid better. Switzerland, Germany, England, you get paid really well. Like those are like, okay, comparable.
And of course there are like the wealthier countries in Europe you can get paid well, but generally like job for job comparison you get paid more in the US. But that's not to say that a waiter in the US is gonna make more than a bank account manager in Switzerland. Like no, of course not. Like if we're comparing like job to job, sure, but there are high paying jobs in Switzerland, then there are a lot of low paying jobs here in the States. So you can't, make that
We saw
comparison.
for McDonald's, it was more.
Yeah, and like we saw in Denmark, I think people in McDonald's make more than people in McDonald's here. Very shocking, but good for them.
Doing okay, but go work in Portugal, go work in Eastern Europe. Like the money is, literally like a fraction of what you make in the U.S. So that's one thing I think is important to mention. However, you do get more with your money when you live in Europe, when you work in Europe, because you do have more benefits. Maybe you get paid a 13th month out of the year, or sometimes a 14th month out of the year. So those there, maybe you get credits for childcare, or you get credits for, transportation allowances. So there's a little bit more like freebies in Europe that they give with you versus just, oh, look, a pizza party, thanks, boss, that you get in the US. And kind of looking at things in...
Yeah, the transportation allowance is a thing. My mother, she got like gas money, covered all. She didn't have to pay for gas. Like her gas money was covered. She got a car too. Like a work car to like a benefit here. I'm sure they do it too, but probably like a very, very high level people.
In general, I know when I worked in Europe, I made less money than I did when I worked in the US, but I will say life in Europe is cheaper. I mean, living, existing, loving life is just cheaper in Europe than it is in the US. I mean, that's why I tell people all the time, if you're gonna go on vacation, once you get to Europe, it is cheaper to enjoy Europe than it is to enjoy, the US. I mean, I'm here in Torino, which is a relatively expensive city in Italy, and it's still cheaper than going to Orlando for me. Accommodation, going out to eat, it's better than there, right? And so you think about that, it's like, yeah, I don't make as much, but I don't need as much money as well, because you are more in the city and more things are going on, right? And that's why it's important to mention, your transportation to work is a lot different. It's not a car-based society in Europe. You are switching to public transportation. Now, if you worked in the big city in the US, probably you might already use the L in Chicago or the trains, in New York. But public transportation is a thing in the US. And when you come to Europe, it becomes integrated into your thing. So you're learning when I need to take the bus, when does that metro go by? I remember when I lived in Berlin, I knew exactly where my S-Bahns were going, and I'm like, I gotta get up that escalator. Like, it's definitely different than, oh, I gotta sit in the traffic jam to get to work. Now, don't get me wrong, you can get a car, and believe me, you drive in Europe, you're gonna be in a traffic jam every day because there's not a lot of space, but also just to get into work is a different experience. And you'll notice there's a reason why in the US, our cars have nice cup holders and really good stereo systems, because we sit in our cars all the time, we're drinking on our way, whereas here in Europe, it's a shorter commute, but also with the crazy drivers and so many more packed things.
A lot of people
you don't have time
complain
to
when
change.
they get the luxury cars, they don't have cup holders. Or if you want, it's a premium feature.
You don't have time to focus on what you're driving. Now, another money thing you'll notice is a bit different is taxes. Yeah, you're going to pay a lot more taxes when you are here in Europe than you are in the U.S. In general, I'm just going to say that if you're making decent money, a lot more comes out, especially if you're going to Sweden or Norway, Finland. Like taxes do get a bit higher, so that's one of those things you'll notice in your check that a lot more is missing when you're working in Europe. But you do get more stuff with it, so that's one of those things. Like, oh, I do have relatively cheap healthcare or free public healthcare. Yeah, maybe the NHS isn't the greatest, but it's included with living here. So, I guess that's okay. But I will say, like, for the things you're not gonna like, the biggest one that Americans like have a tough time adjusting to is European bureaucracy. Like, I know we've got the DMV in the US, and that's our one example of like annoying bureaucracy, but oh my gosh. Try to get internet at your house. Try, if you're in France, try to schedule a pickup of that Amazon package with a delivery driver. It's insane, right? The levels of bureaucracy, the level of things you have to go through, the hoops you jump through, the forms you sign, the stamps you need. Oh, you know, and a lot of it's these catch-22s, like, oh, hey, I need to get an apartment, but in order to get an apartment, I need a bank account. But in order to get a bank account, I need an apartment where I have an address. Oh, the bureaucracies here are such next level that for Americans, they get very frustrated with it. Now, another thing I think is important to mention about your workplace actually here in Europe is don't expect everyone to fall in line with the boss. Like, the boss isn't necessarily God. Now, some parts of Europe, the boss is kind of like a godlike figure, but in general, you have a lot more discussion, a lot more consensus at work
AT&T Business helps me do my job on the fly. It's just
than in the US, where it's kind of like, well, the boss says this, so why are we even debating it? Here, you do have that open debate. And for some Americans, they're like, oh my gosh, he's talking back to the boss. What are you doing? You're gonna get fired. No, you have much more discussion that's here. And the thing, one of the reasons why you have that is another difference is you don't worry about getting
Oh, okay.
fired in Europe like you do in the US. Like,
Okay, I was gonna say it, but he already led there. Here we have like at will, hire, fire at will. In Europe, no, you really need a reason. So I guess talking back is just not a reason. Like, it's not a valid reason. Like, oh, he talks back to me, like he challenges me. Like, that's not a valid reason. Here,
So what would be considered a valid reason? Like actual performance?
stole money, low performing, didn't follow rules in the.
Low performance, is it based on like whatever the metrics
Yeah,
is?
probably. I'm sure there's metrics. Yeah, just didn't do enough, stuff like that. So I do think that that is true. Like, because here, like, you literally can walk in and take today fired for no reason, right? And people try to play like, oh, because of race, because of that. But sometimes it can just be like, I didn't like how you look. You know, if you look ugly today, you fired. Like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's like at will. Like, there's no need to have a reason to fire you. In Europe, you do. So that makes sense now.
I think I do a great job where I teach, but every year I'm still worried that I'm not going to get asked to come back the next year. I mean, it's very much a worrisome thing. Like, you have the at-will
does he
work
teach?
environment in the U.S. that you never know, right? Whereas in Europe, you have a
What does he teach and why does he teach? He has 1 million subscribers. He don't need to be teaching nothing.
lot more protections. Like, you're not worried that you're going to get fired because your boss had a bad day, because your union is
Maybe
there
for
for you, or
benefits?
there's protections by law that if you do
True,
get fired, they have
yeah,
to pay you
a
for
lot
a
of
year or two or
benefits.
something like that. Like, those kind of things make a difference. Mothers, they're not worried about having kids because they have protection for maternity leave, and they get paid maternity leave, paid paternity leave. I mean, those kind of things make a difference, so you do feel more comfortable. Like, you can share your true feelings about a project. Hey, what do we need to do? And so you have a different mentality. And also, I think another difference is the mentality of the workforce. It's not as much like grind and the hustle and I need my side hustle kind of stuff like you have in the US. It's much more of that laid back attitude, that laissez-faire attitude when it comes to work. And then I want to mention one thing that I did notice when I worked in Europe is you're not going to have as much diversity in your workforce here in Europe as you do in the US. Just because Europe in general, like you're in Italy, it's full of Italians. There's a lot more Italians, a lot less diversity in the workers than you have in the US. There's a melting pot of places. Now, if you go to like bigger cities, yeah, if you're in Milan or Paris or London, you're gonna have more of that. Like, the UK has much more diversity, France has much more diversity, but that's one of those things when you work, you'll notice that there's not a lot of diversity sometimes in your workplace when you're here in Europe. So if you've been an expat working in Europe, tell us, where have you worked? What was your experience? And what were some of the differences?
Interesting. Yeah. There's some new things he said that we haven't really heard before. Other stuff, as always, I disagree and challenge, but I don't know. Maybe that's just like my family and other people are just chill in Europe and
Can I see the
I
comments?
don't know. But I did like this video because oftentimes when we do these videos, it's kind of like glamorizes Europe. This guy felt like it was, his opinion, but it was fair. Like he kind of showed positive and negative. Dan here, funny with your perception of Europeans working slower. I have worked with a lot of American business partners, suppliers, and my perception is the opposite. American, you like to give the best lady lift to work, put a lot of hours, but they seem efficiency. Yeah, when he said that, I can't say how Europeans work because I never like work, but here I can see that it's not really people kind of lazy and they half-ass shit. I don't. To me, in my opinion, at least in Lithuania, Lithuanians are faster and more efficient than Europe. So, but again, I can't say for every. Maybe there's exceptions, but that point was kind of interesting. I would think Americans are slower than Europeans. No, the tax doesn't suck in Europe because you get a lot for that. US people consider tax a bad thing and they want it as little as possible. They feel that it's just bullying in some places in Europe. People vote in favor of raising taxes to finance development projects. Uh, I mean, if you make enough money where like you can afford to pay taxes, I think that's fine. But I think the issue of taxation is when you like barely surviving and then there's taxes on top of that, and
Yeah.
you're like, fucking kidding me. But if you can afford to pay taxes, yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Especially for like a developmental project that you see like benefits like outright, and it's not gonna take place in like 50 years, 100 years from now.
Mm.
Okay. Guys, of course, let us know your thoughts. Forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord, and as always, share as much kindness as possible. Bye.